7 days. In just 1 week, this investigation has changed dramatically. New court filings, legal motions, statements from prosecutors, and defense attorneys have revealed a much more complicated picture than the one first reported. Today, we're examining those developments, what has been confirmed in court, and what investigators say comes next. Let's start with where the legal proceedings stand right now. All 4 defendants in this case waived their right to preliminary hearings on Tuesday. That decision sends the case directly to a grand jury, which is expected to convene in mid-July, according to one of the defense attorneys. A special prosecutor, Kara Keating, a former Franklin County prosecutor, has been appointed to work alongside the Vinton County Prosecutor's Office and the Ohio Attorney General's Office. The involvement of outside resources signals that this case was recognized early as one that exceeded the county's normal capacity to handle alone. The 4 defendants are Gary Siders Sr., 73, Christina Siders, 67, Gary Siders Jr., 36, and Elizabeth Siders, 33. All 4 entered not guilty pleas at their arraignment on July 1st. Each is being held on a $300,000 bond, and each now has legal representation as the case moves toward a grand jury. Prosecutors have confirmed that additional charges are expected as investigators continue reviewing evidence from the property. The investigation is active, it is ongoing, and according to the Vinton County Prosecutor's Office, what has been charged so far represents the beginning of the legal case, not the full picture. Now let me walk you through the most significant developments of the last 48 hours. Because several things happened simultaneously this week that each deserve careful examination. The first involves Gary Siders Sr. He's 73 years old. He was being held at the Southeastern Ohio Regional Jail on that $300,000 bond. And on Wednesday, while in custody, he suffered a fall that required medical attention significant enough to prompt a transfer to Ohio Health Oblin Hospital in Athens. His attorney, Dorian Baum, had already filed a motion to lower his client's bond, citing significant health concerns. Vinton County Judge Lena Rogers responded by converting the bond, not eliminating it, but changing it from a cash bond to a recognizance bond, which allowed Gary Sr. to be transferred for medical care. When he arrived at Oblin Hospital, the assessment there led to a recommendation for transfer to a larger facility with more specialized capabilities. Prosecutor William Archer addressed this at a press conference. He said the medical care involved could place an extraordinary financial burden on the county. Vinton County is one of the smallest counties in Ohio. The budget considerations around providing court-mandated care for a defendant in a case of this complexity are real, and Archer chose to say so publicly. That's where Gary Siders Sr. is right now, out of jail in a medical facility, with significant health questions unresolved, and his legal situation just became more complicated. Dorian Baum has filed a motion for a competency evaluation, and he is considering. The word considering is important here. This is not yet a formal plea. A not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect defense. Let me explain what each of those means in legal terms, because they're distinct. A competency evaluation is about the present. It asks whether this defendant, right now, understands the charges against him and is capable of participating meaningfully in his own defense. If a court-ordered evaluation determines he is not competent, the proceedings involving him pause until that changes. It doesn't mean charges are dropped. It means the case waits. The mental disease or defect defense is about the past. It's an argument that at the time the alleged conduct occurred, the defendant did not understand the nature of what he was doing or did not understand that it was wrong. It's a high bar. The burden of proof sits with the defense, and it's a defense that, if raised, will require extensive psychological evaluation and expert testimony before a jury can evaluate it. Baum is pursuing both tracks simultaneously, a competency evaluation now, and the possibility of that defense at trial. That combination has real implications for the case timeline. If the evaluation returns a finding of incompetency, the proceedings for Gary Sr. could be separated from the others and placed on a significantly longer timeline. Meanwhile, the other 3 defendants are proceeding on a separate path. Christina Siders' legal representation told media the case is in its early stages and they are working through the facts. Gary Siders Jr. has a separate court date scheduled for July 23rd related to prior misdemeanor charges that initially brought investigators to the property. Charges of indecent exposure that resulted in the warrant served on June 30th. And Elizabeth Siders' legal situation has taken a turn that deserves more attention than it's received in most of the coverage this week. Tommy Stolley, the attorney representing Elizabeth, said in court and to media that he believes Elizabeth is the mother of all the minors involved in this case. He is actively investigating whether she herself may also qualify as a victim in these proceedings. He has filed a motion seeking a bond reduction based on that argument, that her circumstances require examination before she can be treated identically to the other defendants. That's a significant legal argument, and it connects to something a family member said publicly this week. Ronnie Fletcher, who identifies himself as an uncle of those involved, spoke to News Nation affiliate Wauki. He described the broader family's reaction as one of horror and disbelief. He said they didn't know. He said they would have intervened had they known. He said his wife would give her last $5 to help someone. But the detail Fletcher shared about Elizabeth specifically is the one that reframes the picture. He said Elizabeth came from a difficult home life before entering this family. He used the specific phrase that she escaped into the Siders family. Escaped into, not joined. Not married into in the conventional sense. Escaped into, as if the environment she left behind was one she needed to leave, and the Siders household represented, to her at the time, a way out of something else. Stolley's motion to have Elizabeth's bond reconsidered is built on exactly this kind of argument, that her background, her circumstances, and her role within the household structure deserve to be understood in full before the court treats her identically to the other defendants. None of this resolves the charges against her. She has pleaded not guilty. The legal process will determine what the evidence shows, but it does mean that this case, which looked from the outside like 4 adults equally responsible for the same conduct, is already developing into something considerably more layered. Let me now talk about the investigation itself, because the legal proceedings are happening on top of an investigation that, according to prosecutors, is still actively expanding. The Vinton County Sheriff's Office, the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and the Ohio Attorney General's Office are all involved. A special prosecutor has been appointed, and the investigation has already extended beyond Vinton County. Here's why that matters. According to investigators and reporting from multiple Ohio outlets, the Siders family moved multiple times across different counties over a period of years. Property records place them in Gallia County around 2008, in Cheshire, also in Gallia County, around 2022 and 2024, and then in Vinton County, at a separate Hamden address before the Omer Road property where investigators documented conditions on June 30th. Authorities believe this movement was sustained across at least 18 years. 18 years during which, investigators say, the family maintained a pattern of avoiding the creation of records, medical, educational, governmental. That would have generated a documented trail. And here's the thread that matters most to the question of how this went undetected for so long. Court filings and reporting have indicated that there were approximately 18 births over a period of less than 17 years connected to this case. With that number of births over that period of time, investigators, prosecutors, and public health advocates are now asking how many medical encounters occurred, how many opportunities existed for a mandatory reporter, a nurse, a physician, a hospital social worker, to observe circumstances that should have triggered a report under Ohio law. Ohio's mandatory reporter statute requires medical professionals and others to contact authorities when they have reasonable cause to believe a minor is not receiving adequate care. The question of whether any of those births generated reports, and if so, what happened to them, is now part of the expanded investigation. Christina Siders and Gary Siders Sr. were confirmed this week to have been receiving state benefits at the time of their arrests. That means there was some point of contact with government administration, some paperwork, some record. And yet the case came to light through a misdemeanor warrant connected to a matter entirely separate from the welfare of those involved. Gary Siders Jr. faced unrelated misdemeanor charges that resulted in the warrant served on June 30th. Deputies arrived at 182 Omer Road to serve that warrant. Authorities documented conditions at the property. 7 of those removed from the home were transported to area hospitals. 2 were transported to a specialized medical facility in Columbus. Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson described the evidence he reviewed as extraordinarily serious and said the timing of the warrant proved critically important. That misdemeanor warrant is what brought law enforcement to that address on that Tuesday morning. Not a referral, not a neighbor's call, not a report from a mandatory reporter. A warrant for a separate matter entirely. That is worth sitting with, not as a dramatic point, but as a factual one that the investigation is now working to fully understand. The children involved are safe and placed in care. That's what matters most. The prosecutor confirmed that authorities have not yet conducted formal interviews with those involved as it pertains to this case. That process will come later, handled by specialists and done carefully to protect the integrity of future proceedings. The community of Hamden, a village of roughly 700 people, gathered on Monday night for a prayer vigil. Residents came together not with answers, but with the need to be in the same place and process what had happened on a road in their community. Let me bring you back to what happens next in court. The grand jury is expected to convene in mid-July. When it does, investigators will present the evidence. The grand jury will decide whether to formally indict the 4 defendants on the current charges and potentially on additional charges the prosecutor's office has indicated are forthcoming. Gary Jr.'s separate court date is scheduled for July 23rd. Gary Sr.'s competency evaluation will need to be scheduled and conducted before the court can determine whether his case proceeds on the same timeline as the others. Bond hearings and modifications may be addressed through paperwork and hearing formats as the case develops. The special prosecutor and the Attorney General's office are coordinating the broader investigation across county lines. This case is 1 week old in legal terms. It is not close to resolved. What was documented at 182 Omer Road on June 30th will be examined, tested, and argued in court for months, possibly longer. Multiple defendants, multiple attorneys, multiple defenses now taking shape simultaneously. Those involved are placed and receiving care. That's where I want to leave this. Not with the legal complexity, not with the financial burden on a small Ohio county, not with the competency questions or the bond motions. With the fact that the people who were at that address on the morning of June 30th are not there anymore. They're placed. They're receiving support. That process has started, and it will take time, but it has started. If you're following this case and want to continue as the grand jury proceeds and the legal picture develops, subscribe to Crime Uncovered. We'll be here for every verified development, the filings, the hearings, the decisions, and the questions about systemic gaps that this case is forcing into public view. Some cases matter beyond the specifics of a single location. They matter because of what they reveal about systems, about the distance between what those systems are designed to catch and what they actually caught. This is one of those cases. We'll keep following it.